I was about to take a shower when my wife burst in, completely naked, out of breath, and in a panic. Then I heard it. Someone else was in my house. What I discovered in my closet changed everything in my marriage instantly. But the DNA test, weeks later, revealed a betrayal far more devastating than infidelity. My name is David Grant. I'm 44 years old. Up until 3 weeks ago, I thought my life was pretty solid. I work as the operations director at Kell Manufacturing, a job that pays well but demands all my energy. My wife, Emily, is a regional manager at First National Bank, overseeing 3 branches. We have 2 sons, Noah, who's 14, and Ryan, who just turned 7. Noah isn't biologically mine or Emily's. He's the son of my best friend, Jake, and his wife, Melissa, who tragically died in a car crash when Noah was only 2. We've been close with them since college, and when the accident occurred, there was no question. Noah became our responsibility, and we raised him as our own. For years, everything seemed fine. We had our routines, weekend barbecues, and family movie nights. Sure, Emily and I had grown a little distant over the past year, but I chalked it up to the stress of work and the challenges of raising kids. I thought we would reconnect once things calmed down. I was wrong. It was a Tuesday evening when everything came crashing down. For once, I came home early, planning to fix that stubborn showerhead in the master bathroom that had been leaking for weeks. Emily had brought it up at least a dozen times, and I had kept putting it off. There I was, sitting on the floor with a wrench in my hand, finally taking care of it. The house was quiet. The boys were at soccer practice. Noah and Ryan's teams practiced at the same complex, making pickups easier. Emily had texted earlier to say she'd pick them up after her gym session. I was focused on tightening the fixture when I heard the front door slam open, followed by hurried footsteps. Quick, heavy, frantic. Before I could process what was happening, the bathroom door flew open. Emily stood there, completely naked, water dripping from her body, her hair soaking wet. She was breathing heavily, as if she had just run a marathon. Her eyes widened when she saw me crouched on the floor, holding the wrench in my hand. Neither of us moved for a moment. My first thought was that something awful had happened. Maybe she had been attacked or something had gone wrong. But then I saw her expression. It wasn't fear. It wasn't panic about some external danger. It was guilt. Pure, unmistakable guilt. David, she gasped, her voice cracking. I thought you were still at work. I slowly stood up, setting the wrench down on the counter, my heart racing, a sick feeling creeping into my chest. What's going on, Emily? She opened her mouth, closed it again, and looked away. That's when I heard it, a faint sound coming from the hallway. A door shutting. Someone else was in my house. I moved past Emily before she could speak again. She grabbed my arm, her wet fingers slipping against my skin, but I shook her off. My mind was racing, trying to understand what was happening, but my body was already moving. David, wait. Emily's voice was high, desperate. But I didn't wait. I walked down the hallway toward our bedroom, my steps heavy on the hardwood floor. The door was half open, and the bed was perfectly made, the comforter smooth and wrinkle-free. Too perfect, like someone had made the effort to tidy it up. Then I saw it, a phone on the nightstand, not Emily's. I picked it up, and the screen lit up with a notification. It was a message from someone named Matt that made my stomach churn. Is he gone yet? My jaw clenched. I turned slowly, holding up the phone. Emily had followed me into the room, grabbing a robe from behind the door and pulling it around herself. Her face was pale. Who's Matt? I asked, my voice unnervingly calm. She swallowed hard, her eyes flicking between the phone and the closet. That's when I heard it again, a soft rustling sound, like fabric moving. Someone was hiding in my closet. I walked over and yanked the closet door open. There, pressed against the back wall between hanging shirts and jackets, stood a man. He was shirtless, his jeans unbuttoned, his face flushed either from exertion or fear. Probably both. For a moment, none of us moved. The 3 of us stood frozen in shock. Then the man, who I would later learn was named Scott Richards, stepped forward, hands raised in surrender. Look, man, I can explain. I grabbed him by the arm and pulled him out of the closet. He stumbled, almost falling, and I shoved him toward the door. Emily screamed something, but I couldn't hear her over the pounding of blood in my ears. Get out, I growled, my voice low and threatening. Get the hell out of my house. Scott scrambled for his shirt on the floor, but before he could get away, Emily rushed between us, pressing her hands against my chest. David, stop. Just listen for a second. I looked down at her. This woman, my wife for 15 years, and I didn't recognize her anymore. Listen to what, Emily? Listen to you explain why there's a half-naked man hiding in our closet. Scott backed toward the door, holding his shirt against his chest like a shield. She told me you guys were separated, he blurted out. She said you were getting a divorce. I froze. I turned to Emily, my eyes narrowing. Is that what you told him? Her face went red, but she didn't answer. She didn't have to. The guilt was written all over her face. Scott took that opportunity to run. I could hear him sprinting down the hallway, and then the front door slammed a few seconds later. I stood there, staring at Emily, still holding Scott's phone, my mind struggling to process everything that had just unfolded. My wife had been having an affair in our own house, in our bed, with a man who thought we were separated. Emily's voice broke through my thoughts. David, please, let me explain. Explain what? I interrupted, my voice icy. Explain why you've been lying to me. Explain why you brought another man into our home. She pulled her robe tighter around her, tears now streaming down her face. It's not what you think, she began. I took a step toward her, and she backed up against the dresser. From where I'm standing, it looks pretty damn clear. She opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. You've been so distant. You're always working, always stressed. I felt invisible. I scoffed, the sound bitter. So that's your excuse? I was working too much, so you decided to sleep with someone else? It's not an excuse, she shot back defensively. I'm just trying to make you understand. Understand what? I asked, shaking my head as anger and disgust washed over me. That you're a liar? I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. How long, Emily? How long has this been going on? She looked away, biting her lip. Look at me, I demanded. How long? For months, she whispered. For months. A third of the year. The late nights at work, the extra gym sessions, the distance, the distractions, all of it made sense now. I ran a hand through my hair, trying to steady myself. That's when I noticed it, or rather, the absence of it. Where's your wedding ring? Her left hand instinctively went to her ring finger, but it was bare. Her face turned even paler. I lost it. You lost it? I repeated flatly. She nodded too quickly. Yeah, at the gym. I took it off to shower, and it must have slipped down the drain. I've been meaning to tell you. When did this happen? Last week, maybe 2 weeks ago? I don't remember exactly. I stared at her, and I could see the lie forming in real time. She was scrambling, making it up as she went. You don't remember when you lost your wedding ring? I was upset about it, she said. I looked everywhere. I turned and walked out of the bedroom, heading straight for the laundry room. Emily followed, her voice rising with panic. David, where are you going? I didn't answer. I walked into the laundry room, where I'd been meaning to organize the shelves for weeks. There, on the top shelf, behind some cleaning supplies, was a small box I'd found a few days ago while looking for light bulbs. I had meant to ask Emily about it, but work had taken over. I grabbed the box and walked back to the bedroom. Emily was frozen in the doorway. I opened the box. Inside was her wedding ring. The silence that followed was deafening. Emily's face turned from pale to crimson. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. You want to try that story again? I asked quietly, holding up the ring. Emily stared at the ring in my hand, her mouth moving, but no words came. Finally, she spoke. I didn't know where it was. I must have taken it off and forgotten. Stop. I held up my hand, and she fell silent. Just stop lying. You've done enough of that already. Her face twisted with a mix of shame and defiance. Fine, you want the truth? I took it off because I didn't want to wear it anymore. Is that what you wanted to hear? The words hit me like a physical blow. I nodded slowly, something cold settling in my chest. Yeah, that's the truth I needed to hear. I walked past her, back into the bedroom, and pulled my duffel bag down from the top of the closet. Emily followed, panic returning. What are you doing? What does it look like? I began throwing clothes into the bag, shirts, jeans, socks, underwear, everything I needed for a few days. You're leaving? She asked, her voice rising an octave. You can't just leave. I turned to face her. Whatever she saw in my expression made her take a step back. Watch me. What about the boys? She demanded, playing her final card. You're just going to walk out on them? I'm not walking out on them, I said, my voice hard. I'm walking out on you. There's a difference. I zipped up the bag and headed for the door. Emily grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. David, please, we can fix this. We can go to counseling. I pulled my arm free, not harshly but firmly. There's nothing to fix, Emily. You made your choice when you brought him into our home. When you lied to me for 4 months. When you took off your wedding ring. I made a mistake, she cried, her voice breaking. I'm sorry. I'll end it with him. I swear. You're not sorry for doing it, I said quietly, meeting her eyes. You're sorry you got caught. There's a big difference. I turned toward the front door, and she followed, increasingly desperate. Where are you going to go? That's not your concern anymore. What am I supposed to tell the boys when they get home? I stopped at the door, hand on the knob, then turned back to her one last time. Emily, for once in your life, tell the truth. I walked out, and she stood in the doorway crying, but I didn't look back. I couldn't. If I looked back, I might lose my resolve. I needed to get out of there before I said or did something I would regret. I got into my car and sat there for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, trying to process everything that had just happened. My phone buzzed. Emily was already calling. I declined the call and pulled out of the driveway. I drove without a real destination, just needing to put some distance between myself and that house. Eventually, I pulled into the parking lot of a hotel off the highway. It was one of those extended stay places, nothing fancy, but it would do. As I checked in, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Emily. It was a text from Noah. Dad, where are you? Mom's crying and won't tell us what happened. My heart sank. I hadn't wanted the boys to find out this way, but I should have known Emily would break down the moment they got home. I texted back, I'll call you in a few minutes. Everything's going to be okay. But as I hit send, I realized I didn't know if that was true. I sat in the hotel room, phone in hand, trying to figure out what to say to Noah. How do you explain to a 14-year-old that his life is about to be shattered? That the family he's known for 12 years is falling apart? Before I could call him, my phone rang again. Noah's name flashed on the screen. I answered. Hey buddy. Dad, what's going on? His voice was tight with worry. Mom won't stop crying. And Ryan keeps asking what's wrong. She just keeps saying, you'll explain. I took a deep breath. I need you to take Ryan to his room and stay with him for a bit, okay? I'll come by in an hour, and we'll talk. Is it bad? My throat tightened. Yes, son. It's bad. There was a pause. Then Noah said something that made my blood run cold. It's about Mom and that guy, isn't it? I sat up straight, heart pounding. What guy? The guy who's been coming around. Noah's voice dropped to a whisper. I saw him a few times. He'd show up when you weren't home. I didn't know whether to say anything. My hand started shaking. How long have you known? A couple of months, maybe. I wasn't sure what was going on at first. I thought maybe he was a friend from her work or something. But then, I don't know, Dad. Something felt off. I closed my eyes, guilt washing over me. My son had been carrying this burden, probably torn between loyalty to his mother and wanting to tell me the truth. Noah, listen to me, I said, my voice firm. This is not your fault. None of this is your fault. Okay, he whispered. I should have told you. I should have said something. No, I said firmly. You're a kid. This was never your responsibility. Your mom and I. We're the adults. This is on us. Are you and Mom getting divorced? The question hung in the air. I hadn't even thought that far ahead yet, but hearing Noah ask it made the reality hit me. I don't know yet, buddy. But right now, I need some space from her. That doesn't mean I'm leaving you and Ryan. I'll never leave you guys. I want to stay with you, he said quickly. When you figure things out, I want to live with you. My heart broke and swelled at the same time. We'll talk about all of that. Right now, I need you to be strong for your brother, okay? I'll be there soon. After I hung up, I sat there staring at the wall. Noah had known. My 14-year-old son had been watching his mother's affair unfold and had been too scared or confused to say anything. That thought made me angrier than anything else that had happened today. I grabbed my keys and headed back to the house. I owed my sons a face-to-face conversation, and I needed to get more of my things. When I pulled into the driveway, Emily's car was still there, but the house was quiet. I used my key and walked in. Noah was sitting on the stairs waiting. Ryan was nowhere to be seen. He's watching TV in his room, Noah said, standing up. I told him you were coming. I pulled Noah into a hug, and he held on tight. I'm sorry, Dad. You have nothing to be sorry for. I whispered into his hair. Nothing. When I pulled back, I saw tears in Noah's eyes. Is Mom a bad person? That was the question I had been dreading. No, son, I said quietly. She's not a bad person. She made bad choices. There's a difference. It doesn't feel different, he whispered. I know, I said, my heart heavy. But one day, you'll understand that people are complicated. Even the people we love. Emily appeared at the top of the stairs, her eyes swollen from crying. When she saw me with Noah, something flickered across her face. Fear, maybe, or shame. David, can we talk? Not right now, I replied, keeping my arm around Noah's shoulders. I came to talk to the boys. They're my sons too, she said, descending the stairs. I have a right. You lost that right when you brought another man into this house, I said quietly, mindful that Noah was listening. When you lied to them, just like you lied to me. Emily's face crumpled. That's not fair. Fair. I let out a bitter laugh. You want to talk about fair? Was it fair that Noah has been watching you sneak around for months? That he's been carrying that weight because he didn't know what to do? Emily's eyes shot to Noah, her face filled with shock. You knew? Noah looked down at his feet, and I squeezed his shoulder. He's not the one on trial here, Emily. You are. I guided Noah toward the living room. Go get your brother. We're having a family meeting. While Noah went upstairs, Emily followed me into the living room. David, please. We need to talk about this. What's there to talk about? I turned to face her. You've been cheating on me for 4 months. You told your boyfriend we were getting divorced. You took off your wedding ring. What exactly do you think we need to discuss? How we're going to move forward? She said desperately. How we're going to explain this to the boys? There is no we anymore, Emily, I said flatly, finality in my voice. You made sure of that. Noah came back down with Ryan, who looked confused and scared. At 7 years old, Ryan didn't understand what was happening, but he knew something was very wrong. I sat down on the couch and pulled Ryan onto my lap. Noah sat next to me. Emily stood awkwardly by the doorway, unsure if she was welcome in her own living room. Guys, I began, looking at both my sons. You know that your mom and I love you very much, right? Ryan nodded. Noah just stared at his hands. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, I continued carefully. Big mistakes, and those mistakes can hurt the people around them. Are you and Mom getting a divorce? Ryan asked in a small voice. I glanced at Emily, who was crying silently. We're going to take some time apart, I said. I'm going to be staying somewhere else for a while because Mom did something bad. Ryan asked. Because Mom made some choices that hurt our family. Ryan turned to look at Emily. Why did you do something bad, Mommy? Emily's face twisted with anguish. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. For once, she had no excuses, no explanations that would make sense to a 7-year-old. I saved her from having to answer. Sometimes people make mistakes, Ryan. What matters is what we do after. I paused, looking at both of them. Right now, I need you and Noah to know that none of this is your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. Can we come stay with you? Noah asked suddenly. Emily made a choking sound. Noah, I want to stay with Dad, he said, looking at her directly for the first time. I don't want to be here. You can't just take them, Emily started. I'm not taking anyone, I said. But if they want to stay with me for a few days, I think that's reasonable. 2 days later, I was sitting in my hotel room with the boys when I made the call I had been dreading. My mother, Patricia Grant, had been a family law attorney for over 40 years before she retired. She was tough, sharp as a tack at 70, and she didn't suffer fools. I knew exactly what her reaction would be when I told her what Emily had done. David, her voice was crisp when she answered. Is everything all right? You don't usually call on a Wednesday afternoon. Mom, I need your help. I glanced at the boys, who were watching TV, but definitely listening. Emily and I are separating. I need a lawyer. There was a long pause. Then, in a voice colder than I'd ever heard from her, she asked, what did she do? I should have known better than to think I could hide anything from her. She's been having an affair for 4 months. I caught her with the guy in our house. Another pause, longer this time. When she spoke again, her voice had shifted from mother to attorney. Where are you now? Extended stay hotel, off Route 40. I have the boys with me. Good. Keep them there. Don't let her have unsupervised access until we establish a temporary custody arrangement. I could hear her moving, probably already pulling out a notepad. I'm coming over. We need to talk strategy, and I need to hear everything, every detail. David, don't leave anything out. Mom, I don't want to drag you into this. Drag me into this? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Son, she brought another man into my grandchildren's home. She lied to you and manipulated those boys. She's lucky I'm only coming as your attorney and not as her grandmother, my mother said. Because if I went that route, she'd regret ever crossing this family. An hour later, there was a knock on the hotel room door. I opened it to find my mother standing there with her briefcase, looking like she was ready for a fight. She hugged me briefly, then pulled back and studied my face. You look terrible, she said bluntly. Thanks, Mom. She walked into the room and immediately went to the boys. No, Ryan. How are my grandsons doing? We're okay, Grandma, Noah said, though his voice suggested otherwise. She kissed both their foreheads, then turned to me. Conference room now. I followed her to the small business center off the lobby. Once we were alone, she pulled out a legal pad and pen. Start from the beginning. Don't leave anything out. I told her everything. Finding Emily naked and panicked, discovering Scott in the closet, the lie about them being separated, the wedding ring, and no one knowing for months. My mother took notes, her expression growing harder with every detail. When I finished, she set down her pen and looked at me. We're going for full custody. Mom, don't mom me, she interrupted. She brought a stranger into a home with your children. She manipulated Noah into keeping secrets. She lied about your marriage status to facilitate her affair. Any judge will see this for what it is, a woman who put her own desires above the safety and well-being of her children. What about Emily's job? Her position at the bank? My mother smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant smile. Her job is about to become very relevant. She's a regional manager at First National, correct? That means she has a morality clause in her contract, my mother said. Extramarital affairs, especially those that affect the bank's reputation, are grounds for termination. I stared at her. You're going to get her fired? I'm not going to do anything, she replied. But if certain facts become public knowledge during divorce proceedings, well, that's just a natural consequence of her choices. My mother left around dinner time, promising to file the initial divorce paperwork first thing in the morning. I felt a strange mix of relief and fear. This was really happening. My marriage was over. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around midnight, I found myself scrolling through my phone, looking at old photos of Emily and me. Happier times, vacations, holidays, moments when I truly believed we had something real. Then I remembered something. A few months ago, Emily had insisted I get tested for high blood pressure. She had been unusually persistent, making the appointment for me and everything. At the time, I thought she was just being caring. Now I wondered. The next morning, I called my doctor's office and requested a full copy of my medical records. When they asked why, I told them I was switching doctors. It wasn't entirely a lie. I'd probably need to find someone closer to wherever I ended up living. The records arrived via email that afternoon. I skimmed through them, not really sure what I was looking for. Then I saw it. Buried in the test results from 3 months ago was a notation I'd never seen before. Patient shows signs of long-term infertility. Recommend follow-up with specialist if attempting to conceive. I read it 3 times. My heart pounded harder with each read. Long-term infertility. The doctor had noted it, but never mentioned it to me. Why would he, when Emily and I already had 2 kids? Except we didn't. We had Noah, who was adopted, and we had Ryan, who was 7 years old. Ryan, who had Emily's eyes and smile. Ryan, who I'd held in the hospital the day he was born, never questioning that he was mine. My hand started shaking. I looked over at Ryan, who was playing a video game on the hotel TV, completely oblivious to the bomb that had just gone off in my head. 7 years old. Emily's affair had been going on for 4 months. But what if it wasn't the first time? What if there had been others? What if Ryan wasn't my son? I stood up abruptly, startling both boys. I need to make a call. I'll be right back. I stepped outside the hotel room and immediately called my mother. She answered on the first ring. David, what's wrong? I need a DNA test, I said, my voice shaking. There was a pause. Then, carefully, she asked why. I told her about the medical records, about the infertility notation, about the timeline that suddenly didn't make sense. When I finished, my mother was silent for a long moment. Get the test, she finally said quietly. Don't tell Emily yet. If Ryan isn't yours, it changes everything about the custody case. Jesus, Mom. He's 7 years old. He's my son, regardless of biology. I know that, and you know that, she replied. But Emily doesn't get to lie about something this fundamental. If she's been deceiving you about Ryan's paternity for 7 years, that's fraud. That's another level of betrayal entirely. I knew she was right, but the thought made me sick. I ordered a paternity test kit online with express delivery. It would arrive tomorrow. Then I'd have to swab Ryan's cheek and wait for results that might destroy what was left of my world. That night, I watched Ryan sleep in the hotel bed next to Noah. He looked so peaceful, so innocent. Whatever that test said, he was my son. I'd raised him, loved him, been there for every milestone. Biology didn't change that, but Emily's lies did. If she'd been lying about this, too, there would be no mercy. Not anymore. The courthouse was cold that morning. Or maybe it was just me. My mother sat beside me at the plaintiff's table, looking every bit the formidable attorney she'd been for 4 decades. Across the aisle, Emily sat with her lawyer, a man named Richard Thornton, who looked uncomfortable with the case he had been handed. We were there for the custody hearing. My mother had pushed for an expedited schedule, arguing that the children's well-being was at stake. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Judge Patricia Brennan, had agreed. Mr. Grant, Judge Brennan said, looking at me over her reading glasses. I've reviewed the evidence submitted. It's quite extensive. That was an understatement. My mother had compiled a file that would make any prosecutor envious. Photos, text messages, bank statements showing Emily's withdrawals for hotel rooms, witness statements from neighbors who had seen Scott's car in our driveway, and the DNA test results proving Ryan wasn't my biological son. But the most damaging evidence was what Noah had provided. Screenshots of messages Emily had sent her, instructing her to keep the affair secret, manipulating a 14-year-old into complicity. Your Honor, my mother began, standing up. My client is seeking primary custody of both children. The evidence clearly shows that Mrs. Grant engaged in a pattern of deception that directly involved the children, creating an unstable and emotionally harmful environment. Emily's lawyer stood as well. Your Honor, Mrs. Grant admits she made a mistake, but she's still a fit parent. She has a stable job, a stable home. About that job, my mother interrupted smoothly. We've been in contact with First National Bank's HR department. Mrs. Grant's employment contract includes a morality clause. Given that her affair has now become public record through these proceedings, the bank is conducting an internal review. Emily's face went pale. She whispered something urgent to her lawyer, who looked even more uncomfortable. Judge Brennan raised a hand. I'm not here to adjudicate employment matters. However, Mrs. Grant, I am troubled by the evidence showing you involved your 14-year-old stepson in concealing your affair. That shows a serious lapse in judgment. Your Honor, I never meant. Emily began, but the judge cut her off. I'm also troubled by the paternity fraud. Mr. Grant has been raising Ryan as his own son for 7 years, only to discover through infidelity-related DNA testing that the child isn't biologically his. Yet, he still wants custody. That speaks volumes about his character. My mother presented the final piece of evidence, a letter from Noah, written in his own hand, explaining how he had witnessed his mother's affair and had been too afraid to tell anyone. How he had felt guilty and confused, torn between protecting his mother and wanting to tell me the truth. Judge Brennan read it silently, her expression growing harder. When she finished, she set it down and looked directly at Emily. Mrs. Grant, your actions didn't just betray your husband. You betrayed your children's trust. You put them in impossible positions and created an environment of secrecy and lies. She paused. I'm granting Mr. Grant primary physical custody of both children. You will have supervised visitation every other weekend until such time as the court deems otherwise. Emily's composure shattered. She began crying, her lawyer placing a hand on her shoulder. But I felt nothing but relief. My boys would be with me. They'd be safe. As we left the courtroom, my mother squeezed my shoulder. You did good, son. Those boys are lucky to have you. I looked back to see Emily still sitting at the table, her lawyer packing up papers while she sobbed. Part of me felt sorry for her, but mostly, I just felt free. 8 months later, life had settled into something resembling normal. I bought a house closer to the boys' school. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. Noah had his own room, and Ryan did too, though he still sometimes crawled into my bed after nightmares. The DNA results had devastated me at first, but they had also freed me from any remaining guilt. Ryan was my son, test or not. I'd been there for his first steps, his first words, his first day of school. No piece of paper could change that. Emily had lost her job at the bank 3 weeks after the custody hearing. The morality clause in her contract had been enforced once the details of her affair became public. She found work at a smaller regional bank, but it was a significant step down in both position and salary. Scott Richards had disappeared from the picture entirely. Apparently, being exposed as a homewrecker wasn't good for his personal training business. Last I heard, he had moved to another state. Noah had started seeing a therapist to work through his feelings about his mother's betrayal. He was doing better, slowly learning that her choices weren't his responsibility. He had also started calling me Dad more often, something that meant everything to me. Ryan still didn't know about the DNA test. My mother and I had decided to wait until he was older, mature enough to understand that biology doesn't define family. For now, he was just happy to have his own room and a backyard where he could play. Emily's supervised visitation had been a disaster at first. The boys, especially Noah, were angry and resentful. But over time, they began to soften. Not forgive, not yet, anyway. That would take years, if it happened at all. But at least they were civil. I ran into Emily at a parent-teacher conference one evening. She looked tired, older somehow. We made awkward small talk about the boys' grades. Then, she said something that surprised me. "I'm sorry, David, for everything. I know that doesn't change anything, but I need you to know I regret what I did." I looked at her, this woman I had spent 15 years of my life with, and realized I didn't feel angry anymore. Just sad. Sad for what we'd lost, for what the boys had lost, for what could have been if she'd made different choices. "I appreciate that," I said finally. "The boys need their mother. I hope you can be the person they need you to be." She nodded, tears in her eyes, and we parted ways. That night, I tucked Ryan into bed and read him his favorite story. Noah poked his head in and asked if we could watch a movie together. We made popcorn and settled on the couch, just the three of us. This was my family. This was home. And it was enough.